The left suffers what can only be described as a catastrophic defeat with Robert Mueller's testimony on Wednesday. They are stuck on this notion that President Trump committed treason. Ilhan Omar has a ton of baggage and a lot of explaining, but she refuses to do so. And the left not only continues to prove our point about the minimum wage, but they double down on their position. We'll get into that and a whole lot more. I'm Big E, and this is the Liberty Cast. What's up, everybody? We have a packed show for you today. We're probably either going to run over or I'm not going to get to all of it, but let's go ahead and get started.
Ding, ding.
So Robert Mueller testified before Congress on Wednesday, and it was a total disaster. But the left, they just won't let it go. They're still hanging on to this notion that President Trump is a criminal. Even though after 2 years of investigation, millions of dollars spent, no criminality was found. They didn't find that he committed any crimes whatsoever. And there was no predicate crime to start the investigation. So if there is no crime to be used as the basis to open an investigation, what is there to obstruct? Firing Comey doesn't constitute obstruction because he is well within his rights to fire the FBI director. Yeah, he told some people to do things that had they gone through with it, that could possibly have been obstruction, maybe, but they didn't do it, which speaks to the type of people that he has around him that understand that he told them to do something that would not benefit him or the country in the long run. There's a great piece in The Hill by Kevin Brock, who is a former assistant director of intelligence for the FBI. And he lays out a great case as to why this was a total waste of time, an epic failure by the Democrats, and why they should just drop it, take the loss, and just move on. But I'm just going to go over a couple of highlights, a few highlights that he hits in this piece. One of which I already stated: there was no underlying crime. The investigation had no predicate. So again, if there's no predicate crime, you can't obstruct anything. I've gotten into it with some friends of mine, and one friend in particular online, and he is obsessed with the notion that President Trump is somehow a Putin stooge, that somehow he's working for Putin, which I'm not even going to bother debunking that right now. It's just utterly absurd. But yes, Russia tried to meddle in our elections. They do that all the time. It's not a secret. We do it too. Do you really think the fall of the USSR happened organically? Do you really think that our intelligence operatives had nothing to do with it? Of course we did. And President Obama famously, blatantly sent people over to Israel to meddle in Israel's elections in an effort to oust Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, it happens. But to suggest that President Trump was somehow cooperating with those efforts by the Russians is just ridiculous. And then we've gotten into it about whether or not any crimes were committed by Trump or his organization. If there were any crimes committed, they would have recommended indictments. No, they couldn't have indicted him while he was in office, but they could recommend those indictments when he gets out of office, whether that's in a year and a half or 5.5 years from now. I mean, it's just, it's really tedious. But getting back to Kevin Brock's piece, he also talked about the fact that this has never happened before. There is no precedent for charging obstruction in a counterintelligence investigation, which is what this started off as. This is what Mueller's mandate was. It wasn't a criminal investigation. He took that upon himself. This was a counterintelligence investigation. One of the other things that the left likes to point to is the fact that President Trump tweeted a lot about how this was a witch hunt and how He was innocent and there was no obstruction, no collusion, nothing. And somehow that rose to the level of obstruction. Come on. Which is just as ridiculous as the left's claims that the president calling CNN and MSDNC fake news is somehow interfering with the operation of the free press. When you're innocent, when you know beyond a shadow of a doubt, when you know there is absolutely no way that they can charge you or find you guilty of any crime, you're going to shout it from the rooftops. Or in this case, you're going to tweet it from the rooftops. And tweeting about insisting on your innocence is not obstruction. And there is not a person listening right now, there is not a person not listening right now, who if they were charged with a crime they knew they didn't commit, that they wouldn't be shouting it from the rooftops. They wouldn't be going on every possible news outlet they had at their disposal. They wouldn't be doing everything they possibly could to say, this I did not do this. Why should the president have to sit back and take it? For the sake of what, being presidential? I have my problems with the president when it comes to how he comports himself sometimes, whether it's on Twitter or wherever, some of the things he says. But when it comes to proclaiming your innocence, I have no problem with that whatsoever. Get as dirty and nasty as you want when it comes to protecting your reputation. And if that means pissing off the leftists and media, so be it. Who cares? But one of the other things that he mentions is that the allegations that were being investigated were based on the uncorroborated dossier and uncorroborated single witness accounts. If you're conducting a criminal investigation and you want a conviction on whatever charge you're investigating, and you only have one witness statement that wasn't corroborated, there's reasonable doubt. And there's a really good chance that a U.S. attorney or a district attorney wouldn't even pursue the case. They tell you to bring me some more evidence. Bring me something that I can use. Bring me something that I can win with. And here's another really one of the kickers. One of them obviously is the fact that the dossier upon which everything subsequently was based was fake and known to be fake by those who were investigating it. But all of the allegations against the president where he supposedly obstructed justice, in Mueller's own words, he said that he was not impeded in any way. So if the investigation was allowed to continue unimpeded, where is the obstruction? I'm not a lawyer, but I can't see how, if you're allowed to proceed unimpeded, how you're obstructed. That just doesn't make any sense. So Mueller's own words corroborate the president's mantra over the past 2 years: no obstruction, no collusion. And I'd like to be able to end and say, can we finally put this to bed? But we know Nadler and the rest of the leftists are not going to let this go. And I think that's just going to play into the president's hands and hand him a victory in 2020. And if that's the end result of all this nonsense, so be it. And just think about this. Can you imagine, with all the success that we're having as a country right now, can you imagine if he was allowed to govern without any of this nonsense hanging over his head? Can you imagine? I mean, we're at 3.2% GDP growth. Can you imagine we might be at 4 or 5? And just the wall could have been built. Just a quick side note on that. The Supreme Court this week did rule that the president can use Pentagon funds to build the wall. That no new wall has been built since he's been in office is one of the major knocks against this president right now, among conservatives anyway. So if he can get at least some of it built between now and the election with this money that's been freed up, I think he wins handily in 2020. But anyway, so much has been left on the table because of this ridiculous investigation. And so much is going to be left on the table if they continue down this road. Anyway, there is a lot of good reporting Dan Bongino has been on this since the beginning. Molly Hemingway, John Solomon. There's just been a lot of really good reporting on this. Not that you'd know it if you watched CNN or MSDNC, but there's really been a lot of good reporting, and I highly recommend that you check a lot of that out to get a lot of the details to put some meat on the bones of what I just gave you, so to speak. But anyway, let's move on because we have to talk about Ilhan Omar again. Oh my goodness, wow. Okay. She's given us a ton to talk about this week. And I want to try and get through it quickly, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. We have her likely bigamy, her immigration and tax fraud, her refusal to condemn female genital mutilation, and this racist screed that she went on Al Jazeera. All right. Ever since she was elected to the Minnesota state legislature, she's been dogged by questions about her possible marriage to her brother, bigamy, immigration and tax fraud, and a whole host of other things related to statements that she's made publicly, many of which she just refuses to address. But here today, I do want to get into, like I said, her possible bigamy, likely marriage to her brother, which in turn leads to immigration and tax fraud, her refusal to condemn female genital mutilation, and this ridiculous racist statement that she made while in an interview for Al Jazeera, which that should pretty much tell you most of what you need to know, but we'll get into it. But like I said, she refuses to address a lot of these things. The Minnesota Star Tribune has finally decided to pursue some of these investigations and do some actual journalism for a change. And David Steinberg and a few other independent journalists have got onto it. And David Steinberg has done some stellar work investigating and digging into her past, and he's turned up a lot of stuff. We're not going to get into it all, but we are going to hit the highlights here today. But first, we are going to take a quick break.
Would you like to clear up any of the lingering confusion about the allegations of marriage and tax fraud related to your two marriages? Congresswoman, would you like to clear up any of the confusion or set the record straight on the allegations of tax fraud or immigration fraud related to your two marriages?
That was just one of the many times when a journalist has tried to get her to answer questions about these things that should be really easy to answer. It should be really easy to say, no, I did not marry my brother. Get out of here with that. That's all she would have to do. But now, even if she does say that, there's still going to be some questions because she's been asked so many times for so long that even if she does say that now, nobody is going to believe it. But let me just hit you with a timeline of some of these things because it's really ridiculous. So in 2002, Ilhan Omar, she married Ahmed Abdesalan Hirsi in her what she's calling her faith tradition. And I believe, even though she said it was in her faith tradition, she was married by a Christian minister. Actually, I'll leave it alone because I know that there were some. Just bear with me. Anyway, so she marries that guy in 2002, stays married. In 2008, Omar and this guy Hirsi, they end their relationship. No mention of a divorce of any kind. But then in 2009, she marries a man named Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi. This man is her brother, allegedly. And so in 2009, she marries this guy, Elmi. They go to school. In 2011, when they leave school, Omar and Elmi call it quits. They get a divorce in their faith tradition, which I find a little curious because she married another guy in the faith tradition. So I'm confused. But anyway, in 2011, they call it quits. Also in 2011, she gets back together with Hersey. And so fast forward to 2014, they file joint tax returns. But she's still married to Hersey. I'm sorry, she's still married to Elmi legally. And then in 2015, they filed joint tax returns again. And this is according to the Campaign Finance Board report. So she's married to Elmi, filing tax returns with Hersey. That's tax fraud. Can you imagine if Joni Ernst or Marsha Blackburn had that kind of resume, had that kind of sordid past? There is no way they could get away with not answering these questions. No way. And just like Omar, they shouldn't be able to get away with it. And just because I'm conservative and vote Republican, if a Republican had this kind of resume, I would be on this microphone right now saying they need to answer these questions. So in 2014 and 2015, she files these joint tax returns, gets elected to Congress in 2016, and then in 2017, she finally files for divorce from Elmi. Now, in those divorce proceedings, she claimed to have had no contact with this guy since June of 2011, allegedly. But, and this is a big but, and not in a good way, there is actual photographic evidence on Ahmed Elmi's Instagram that they were together in Europe in 2014. So not only is there a possibility that she's a bigamist, and not only is there a likelihood that she committed tax fraud, but then she committed perjury by lying in that divorce proceeding. And I can confidently say that she lied for the simple fact that there is photographic evidence that she was in Europe with this guy. Now, even if she forgot somehow that she may have taken one photograph in 6 years with the guy, how do you forget that? It's just implausible that she could have forgotten, A, that she was in Europe at the time, and B, she took a photograph with this guy. So I am very confident saying that she lied.
But wait, there's more.
So when journalists confronted this guy, Ahmed Elmi, he claimed that he was another guy named Ahmed Elmi, but had a different birthday. Okay, they look quite a bit alike, and they have the same name. They do a little digging into his social media, and they find a picture of him in the hospital with a patient ID bracelet on, and it has his name on it, and the birth date of April 4th, 1985, which is her husband, Ahmed Elmi's birthday. And just to pile on even more, an Instagram account known to belong to Ilhan Omar commented on that photograph, and the comment indicated that she knew his phone number. And this is further proof that she lied because this photograph was from 2013, when she told the court that she hadn't heard from or knew how to get in touch with him since 2011. That is a long and twisted saga that we could spend hours on, but I'm not going to. What I'm going to do, though, is put some links to some articles by David Steinberg, who does a fabulous job of laying all of this out. But there's other Ilhan Omar stuff that we have to get to, and I want to get to it quickly. Along with her twisted personal life, Ilhan Omar has also failed to or refuses to condemn female genital mutilation. I'm not going to get into exactly what that is or entails, but I'll just say that it renders women unable to enjoy sexual pleasure. And it is a big issue in a number of Muslim countries, including Somalia, which is where Omar was born. So at a conference on Muslim Americans' involvement in politics last week, Omar was asked if she would condemn the practice of female genital mutilation.
Will you be able to make a statement against FGM? It would be really powerful if the two Muslim congresswomen, yourself and Rashida, would make a statement on this issue.
Your second question is an appalling question because I always feel like there are bills that we vote on, bills we sponsor, many statements we put out, and then we're in a panel like this, and the question is posed, could you and Rashida do this? And it's like, how often should I make a schedule? Like, does this need to be on repeat every 5 minutes? Should I be like, so today I forgot to condemn Al-Qaeda. So here's the Al-Qaeda one. Today I forgot to condemn FGM. So here it goes. Today I forgot to condemn Hamas. So here it goes. Today I forgot, you know what I mean? It is a very frustrating question. You can look at my record. I voted for bills doing exactly what you're asking me to do. I have put out statements upon statements. And so I am, I think, quite disgusted, really, to be honest, that as Muslim legislators, we are constantly being asked to waste our time speaking to issues that other people are not asked to speak to, because the assumption exists is that we somehow support and are for. So I want to make sure that the next time someone is in an audience and is looking at me and Rashida and Abdul and Sam, that they ask us the proper questions that they will probably ask any member of Congress.
The arrogance of this woman is off the charts. I want to make sure that the next time somebody's in an audience, they ask the proper question. Shut up. Christians get asked all the time about abortion issues, about gay rights issues. Donald Trump is asked all the time about racial issues and condemns racism and condemns it every time he's asked. And I'm sure he might feel the same way. He gets tired of answering the same questions all the time, but he does it. And so does everyone else who's in that position. Because when you believe racism is wrong, when you believe abortion is wrong, when you believe female genital mutilation is wrong, it should be unbelievably easy to condemn it every chance you get. And the fact that she didn't just then, the fact that she got indignant about it, is telling. That question is appalling. You're appalling. Please. I know you're probably getting sick of hearing me talk about this woman, but there's one more point I wanted to make about Ilhan Omar. And it has to do with this racist interview that she gave on Al Jazeera. And as I was looking for the audio, which I'm going to play here in a minute, I found, in fact, I think it was the very first entry in the search results. It was a Snopes article. And before you say it, yes, I know, Snopes. But there's a reason. I looked at Snopes because I had already heard the audio. I was just looking for a way to get it so that I could play it for you. But I had already heard it, but I wanted to know what Snopes had to say about it. Now, I'm going to play the audio, and then I'm going to read for you Snopes' explanation, and we'll go from there.
A lot of conservatives in particular would say that the rise in Islamophobia is a result not of hate, but of fear, a legitimate fear, they say, of quote-unquote jihadist terrorism, whether it's Fort Hood or San Bernardino or the recent truck attack in New York. What do you say to them?
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
So you heard that question and you heard the answer. Now the title of the Snopes article is, "Did Ilhan Omar say our country should be more fearful of white men?" But listen to how they lip-splain her answer. Omar was not suggesting the wholesale fear of white men as a group. Instead, she was making the point that the Muslim community is targeted by anti-terror policies, even though white right-wing extremist men have committed the vast majority of acts of deadly domestic terrorism in recent years. Well, that is racist and factually incorrect according to the FBI stats. In 2017, which are the most recent numbers that we have from the FBI, white men committed 3,252 homicides. Black men committed 3,263. Can you imagine if a Republican or a conservative said, we need to fear and profile all black men because they're committing most of the crimes, they're committing most of the homicide? Come on. They would get drummed out of whatever office, whatever job they held like that. I was reminded of something this week, and it fell right in line with all the racism talk that's going on and calling people racist and whatnot. It wasn't just 10 minutes ago when the left would lecture us on racism and how you can't call people that without proof.
The point I was making was not that my grandmother harbors any racial animosity. She doesn't. Right. But she is a typical white person who, if she sees somebody on the street that she doesn't know, there's a reaction that's been bred into our experiences that don't go away.
People were excoriated for calling Obama a racist on the basis of that statement. I believed he was a racist then. I knew he was. I still believe it to be true. So you have Obama saying what he said in that statement. You have Ilhan Omar and all the ridiculous racist statements she makes. But then on no basis whatsoever, the only criticism other than he colluded with Russia against President Trump is that he's a racist. Forgive me, I should be more precise. Not the only criticism, but the main criticism, aside from the Russia collusion, is that he's a racist. And with far flimsier evidence than what we have against Ilhan Omar. I'm not going to get into debunking that again. That's just ridiculous. But what I will say, just to wrap up this Omar thing, she is a racist. She is an anti-Semite. She is a tax cheat and possibly committed immigration fraud and bigamy. She's got to go. All right, y'all, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about a couple of quick stories and then get you out of here on a couple of really ridiculous stories. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The left loves to say that there's no such thing as a good guy with a gun, that there's no evidence that good guys with guns stop the bad guys. Never mind the fact that when the cops show up, they have guns and they shoot the bad guys, but logic or something. Nevertheless, I give you Exhibit 9,723 of a good guy with a gun stopping a bad guy with a gun in Virginia Beach, Virginia. On Thursday, a couple of geniuses went into a 7-Eleven with masks and guns drawn and demanded that employees and customers do exactly what they say. Now, there was a woman named Barry Engel who was at the register checking out. She said they told them not to move. And one of the geniuses went behind the counter. And the clerk was telling him he didn't have to do it. And at that point, shots rang out. The gunshots did not come from the robbers, but there was an armed citizen in line waiting to check out. After the threat of these geniuses was neutralized, the guns were taken away from them. Come to find out, they were compressed air pistols, not real. Like I said,
Real man of genius.
They wanted everybody to think they had guns, and a good guy with a gun believed them, saw that threat, and neutralized it. Now, apparently these guys had done this several times that day, and their luck ran out. Too bad, not really sad. Well done, sir. His name has been withheld. We don't know his name, but he is a hero. Now, across the pond, over in the UK, where guns and knives are banned, there were 3 people shot in a drive-by in London. A man drove by in a mask and sprayed gunfire at what some reports are saying was an event to commemorate the death of a young man named Rashawn Charles back in 2017. And he died 2 years ago to the day of this shooting. Now, that same night, also in London, at Queensbury Tube Station, train station, subway station, 2 men were shot and 1 tragically died at the scene, and no arrests have been made. Now, in 2018 was London's deadliest year in a decade with 132 homicides. Now, hang on a second, because I distinctly remember guns being banned, and that was supposed to stop all of this. And the left in this country is telling us to follow the example of the UK and ban all the guns, and that will stop all the shootings. Really? Because in one night, 5 people were shot over there. But the guns are banned, so this is not supposed to be happening. Are you confused? Because I'm confused. Because the left has been lecturing us and telling us that guns are evil and guns are bad and we should ban them because when we ban them, that's going to stop all the shootings. And what we've been trying to tell them is it's not a gun thing. They banned guns over in England, knife crime spiked. And it didn't stop shootings, obviously. The only thing it did was make law-abiding citizens vulnerable to criminals who could give less than a damn about following the law. All right, y'all, we're going to get you out of here. And we have a couple of entries for This Week in Stupidity. And surprise, surprise, they're both leftists. So Senator Spartacus is running his yap yet again. Now, he's not a serious contender, and I fully expect him to drop out after this second debate because he's polling behind Robert Francis and Andrew Yang at 1.7%, according to the Real Clear Politics average. He's done. He should drop out now, frankly. But he's qualified for the debate, so we'll get to see that nonsense again. And I had actually intended to put this in the main body of the show, but decided that it just had to be in the stupid segment. So check this out.
Donald Trump is a guy who, you understand, he hurts you, and my testosterone sometimes makes me want to feel like punching him, and which would be bad for this elderly, out of shape man that he is. If I did that, this physically weak specimen. But you see what I'm talking there? Even.
Come on, man. Your testosterone. Nobody wants to hear about your testosterone. Please, that's weak sauce, man. But not only was it just weak and uncomfortable to watch and to listen to, but it's typical leftist. He can't win on the issues. He can't win on the merits. He can't win in a debate. So he resorts to physical violence and insults. Typical leftist behavior. And speaking of a typical leftist, Bernie Sanders, he proves why a $15 minimum wage simply can't work. His campaign proved this because he was paying his least skilled workers $13 an hour, which isn't bad, but he was paying them $13 an hour, and they held his feet to the fire. They wanted him to put his money where his mouth is and pay them $15 an hour. And he was like, oh, no, we can't do that. And of course, they sued. And so he said, okay, we can do that. We will pay you $43,000 a year, but you cannot work more than 50 hours. Sorry, $42,000 a year, which comes up to be a little bit more than $15 an hour. But some of these people who were working these jobs are working 60 to 80 hours a week. So just like what we've been saying all along, if you raise that minimum wage, one of three things is going to happen. Either people are going to lose their jobs, they're just going to cut staff, they're going to cut hours, or the business is just going to close up shop altogether. And of course, Bernie was pissed that his workers went to the press with this. I'm sure he wanted to keep it under wraps. But now that it's out there, he was never going to get the nomination anyway. But this pretty much seals that deal. He's done. He's another one that's done. He will stay in till the end. He will be right there and probably at the convention. It'll probably be him, Biden, Harris, and Warren. But he won't get the nomination. Then again, even without this debacle, I don't think he had a shot of beating any of those people that I just mentioned. All right, y'all, there is a lot more that I wanted to get to, but I went overtime and it went quick. So we'll have to talk about it next week. But anyway, I want to thank you all for listening. You can find us on Spreaker, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio. Anywhere that you like to get your podcast from, you can find us. Please, when you do, subscribe, leave a review, let us know what you think of the content. You can check us out on thelibertycast.net, and you can find all the podcasts there, and that's where you'll find all the links to any of the material that I mentioned in the show and some of the research that I use for the show. You can find all of that there on thelibertycast.net on the podcast page. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's at The Liberty Cast on all three platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you there, interacting. You can check out all of our memes, posts, links to other websites that have some good information that I think you could benefit from. So hit us up. But again, thank you all for listening. And as usual, keep your head on a swivel and stay safe, everybody.